Thank you for your patience. We are back here. #Biashara Tuesday. I love it that you are still sticking with us. But if you're joining us for the first time, let us know where you're tuning in from. Already have feedback here. Engineer Francis Minor saying Mr. Moneyman tuning into the show and waiting for the nudgets. Some of those nudgets are coming up shortly here on the newspaper review section. I'm going to introduce shortly the gentleman who I have here with me on Twitter, or X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. You can find me at Richard_Okenye. Jaco Juang, still in the Republic, hajarudi Turkey, but on a watch show. I see Emperor Sheka as well watching us all the way from Kahawa of Sukari. Thank you, Jal Rakontua, for checking us out on Twitter. Now, Liza, kwani mimi ni muhubiri? I'd love to know what that question is regards to. Papa Peli, watching us all the way from Juja, alongside here Edwin Kibichum, sama traveling to Rift Valley, but lazima nimalize show kwanza. The Grand Duke Magu Mike saying it's a very sensitive remark, so I won't say it, but thank you for watching the show. Michael Magu, as a former high school mate of mine, thank you for tuning in to the show. We are now getting into the newspaper review section. Get yourself a copy of the e-paper or the physical copy, which goes for just Kenyan shillings 60. Before the taxes go up, you can get it at that price. The Daily Nation I have here with me. I have the Standard and the Business Daily. So let me quickly go through the headlines and then introduce the gentlemen here, Nick and Dennis, who are joining me in a short while. Let's start with the Daily Nation here. The headline, Court suspends new health plan. Court suspends new health plan. That's the headline there on the Daily Nation. A judge yesterday granted orders which are halting the implementation of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act, dealing a blow to President William Ruto's push to effect the new health plan that seeks to make it mandatory for every family to contribute a percentage of their income to the fund. Right. The Standard picks it up where there's mass sackings which are looming as NHIF changes begin. This is also still following up on that new Social Health Insurance Fund. The Standard here highlighting the looming changes at the NHIF. Health Cabinet Secretary, that is Susan Nakumisha, has told health fund workers that their jobs are not guaranteed. And the news came as they're moving from NHIF to SHIF. Those are two different bodies, and therefore there's going to be a transfer of functions and also a transfer of workers. Some are likely to lose their jobs. Where do they run to? The Business Daily is also speaking on the business of the Republic. 200 billion Kenyan shillings asset-rich parastatals put on sale. 11 entities have been earmarked by President William Ruto and to be privatized in an IMF-backed plan. Among those is Kenya Pipeline, KICC, among other most lucrative of these government assets. Let's get into the details, but first let me welcome the gentlemen here. Morning, Dennis and Nick. Habari yako kwenu? Let's start with Deno. Habari yako? Yeah. Yes. Kwa salama?
Na ya Nick.
Salama sana.
Right.
Yes.
Morning, Nick.
Morning.
Unlike last week, it is not raining, so it's a beautiful day outside.
Yes. And you see the people of Resambo are saying I should say hi this morning.
Right.
And they are glad that the Resambo representative come 2027 is here.
Yeah.
And they are saying you keep pushing the wagon.
Right.
Yes.
Resambu representative 2027. If you know, you know, right? So let's get into it, gentlemen. Which headline makes sense the most? We always have to, hit out at the editor. Tuone priority iko wapi leo. So Business Daily has 200 billion assets rich parastatals put on sale. I would say for the Business Daily that's apt because it's business, and the business of the Republic is the biggest business of the day. 200 billion. But if we are comparing the Daily Nation and the Standard there, let me begin with Nick. What do you have to say?
Richard, a few weeks ago we talked about this issue. Now, the main concern is the public faith.
Right.
That if you are putting the parastatals to the market, what is the process? How is the public involved in that process? Who are the buyers? We need to know, because these are government owned properties, right? Are they auctioned to private individuals who still run the government?
Okay.
So those are the running questions that are going into the public and the people need to have faith into this process.
Okay. Deno?
So I think on the same one, the last time we had this panel constituted the way it is today, we talked about privatization. The only difference is that at that time, the law had not been assented to. But today, as we speak, the law has been assented to, and now the president can privatize them legally, having that full legal backing.
Okay.
And so looking into that, you see the first installment of parastatals that have been put up for sale are 11. And when we look at what is coming out of the government, the information or communication from the government indicates that this is going to go up to about 35 parastatals by the time we get to next year. So I think for the first time, it is now going to happen. According to the reports in the papers today, this is something that has been tried for almost 10 years.
Okay.
But it has not been successful. It looks like President Ruto will finally have his way.
All right, 200 billion for 11 parastatals. So if you're going for 35, I'm guessing this figure will hit the trillions if it comes to that next year. That's a comment on the Business Daily's headline, but you gentlemen haven't told me what you think of the two headlines, the Daily Nation and the Standard.
Okay, should I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Let me look at the Daily Nation. You know, in the newsroom, we normally say when you want to look at prominence, I can see the editors at Nation were having a lot of difficult time which story to give prominence, because clearly you see the one in the biggest fonts is the one where court suspends new health plan.
Right.
But then they decided to put a picture of KCPE, meaning they also want that to come out.
Also
to also come out clearly. And then the top story on the Business Daily. But I think all editors in both media houses agree that the issue to do with the NHIF and health matters is the most important this morning.
Okay, and that's what we have here. So let's get to the Daily Nation, which is what you have there.
Yes.
I didn't hear from Nick. What do you have to say of the two headlines?
The Standard talks about, again, mass sacking. They have put a huge priority on the issue about jobs, which we'll talk about, and also about the Ruto-Raila proposal into law. Okay. The NADCO committee of dialogue. Yes. So those are the main issues that Standard really wanted us to talk about today.
But I think I'll personally vote on the Standard there, especially coming from what Nick said, which is if you're talking about parastatals here, there are questions which we need to ask. Who's buying, who's selling to who? And I think the Standard answers these questions, or at least puts us into a moment of questioning. Mass sackings, which is job losses for these workers. It is a good story that we have to talk about NHIF and what the court has decided, but this job loss is a very important story, especially at this time. And then also, of course, the proposals and what this law means to hustlers. I think jobs and the situation of the country in terms of the economic environment is well represented here, even still taking prominence of what Deno said there, the most important story of the day, which is health. So let's begin with the Daily Nation. The court has suspended this new health plan, and I was chatting with you gentlemen earlier on. We've seen the court do this a couple of times before. There's a court case which is now a petitioner is arguing that it's illegal to deny Kenyan services for failing to register for this fund. There are several clauses, of course, in between this Social Health Insurance Fund Act, which requires a contribution, as is said here on page 4, at a minimum of 2.75%, which will be pegged there, paid monthly, with the unemployed assessed on their means to determine how much they will pay, but not below 300 Kenyan shillings. Do you think that the court will still have a look at the needs of the people? We came from the finance bill. 90% of Kenyans were not happy about it. There was no public participation. We expected the court to have a turnaround, but they only bought a few weeks of hope, and then it was still implemented. We have the Finance Act. Any hope here?
Okay, looking at this one, Richard, my prayer is that Justice Chacha Mwita will still be on the bench of the Milimani High Court in February, so that he doesn't get transferred like the others.
Mugure Thande.
Yeah, because what he did, actually, when you look at the health ministry, I think this is the flagship project for them. Yes. I think when President is talking about his achievements in health sector, I think he wanted this to be the biggest thing. Clearly, this one is a big blow to the President. You mentioned something about 2.7%, the contribution being pegged to 2.75%. I'm even worried that the reporter or writer of this story is saying that this is according to government officials.
Okay.
Not according to any written document or law or something. So it means it could go beyond 2.75% and all that. But when you look at the issues that the petition has raised in this case, I think they are very pertinent issues. Something like, for example, the law stating that it is illegal that a Kenyan who has not registered with SHIF cannot access health services.
Right.
When you go to the facility nearest to you and the doctor or whoever is offering the service tells you, you know what, you are not registered, so I'm not going to give you the service. And we know our health workers, they will do it. They will stop you from getting that service. It is even bad when they know that they are backed by law, so that if you were to escalate this and decide that you are taking them to court, hata huko utafaulu. You see, that makes it really dangerous for Kenyans. Then the other thing for me is, yes, we are having now the Social Health Insurance Fund, the SHIF. We are disbanding NHIF because of some reasons that we know. It was dysfunctional at some point and all that. What guarantees do we have that this one is going to be very good, perfect, if you like to say so? So I think there are so many gray areas that still need to be looked into. So I think it is good that even the legal things that the petitioner is raising, we would have encountered them even ahead. I mean,
even if it was implemented, we still face this kind of challenges.
Yes.
Okay. Nick, when you look at this, one of the other things the petitions are raising is the lack of engaging stakeholders. Makes you wonder what the Ministry of Health, who the Ministry of Health had to consult. So now that KMPDU and other medical bodies are also petitioning against the lack of stakeholder engagement. Who makes these decisions?
Richard, recently our chapter, like Laikipia chapter, and our national treasurer, and the chapter chairman, President Esther Maina, we did a press conference there in Laikipia, and we were really concerned about the issue of health. And true to it, as we had foreseen, the issue of employment, Richard, because that is where these are the stakeholders. Because if we cannot account to how many jobs are going to get lost, right? Because I see what the CS is saying here. Give me a structure that will help me answer many questions regarding whether jobs are guaranteed or not. Right? Yet we are this same government wants to tell us that these are the people who are supposed to be paying taxes. It's really unfair, totally, because you want to implement a new structure, right? You're firing people, right? If the structure of itself of the health insurance is really has a lot of gaps, one wants to tend to ask what will happen to the hospital itself, as Dennis is saying. How many patients are going to die because of lack of a good system?
Right.
I personally, in my view,
so it seems even the confusion that is there in terms of transfer of jobs, who moves from NHIF to SHIF, it's a lack of that kind of engagement and therefore confusion.
Because one will want to ask, this health insurance, who is it for? Is it for the government or is it for the people?
Right.
This government are making new system or new changes. Are they consulting the people? Have they done public gatherings to hear what the sentiments of the people, right? I hear their proposal that they want to increase the amount from 500 shillings to 1,000 to 1,500. How many people can afford that amount of money at this economy, right? These are one of the things that are really frustrating and are really making Kenyans really painful and crying day in and day out about health.
Right. However, the government is saying this is going to be universal health coverage. They have 4 different acts, 3 different acts actually. That is the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act, all of which have been suspended. Given that this, as you said, there is some of those things that President William Ruto will be boasting if it's successful at the very end of it, should we be looking for the court to suspend it or wait for the implementation and see the fruits, if indeed it is something they've taken a look at and they're now proposing this, given also there have been 100,000 community health workers who've been dispatched to also help in doing this in the households?
You know what, Richard? One thing that we all agree on, no matter which side you are in, is that universal health coverage is an idea that is long overdue.
Okay.
It is a no-brainer that everybody needs to get access to quality and affordable health care. This is something that right now at the topmost is being pushed even by the United Nations. I think it is one of their SDGs there. And it needs to be achieved by 2030. I feel like it is even a shame that we are still talking about it and we are still in the planning stages. We are still not even anywhere close to the implementation. I think it should be our prayer, all of us, that this works. But then it is also good to look at the process so that we don't get it started and then it hits obstacles many years or a few years to come. Because this is not, President Ruto is not a genius. He's not the first person to introduce this. I think President Kenyatta had something about UHC. We even had piloting in some counties. There was supposed to be rollout. What happened to President Kenyatta's own UHC? Now we are talking about President Ruto's UHC. If we don't take care, again, we are going to lose the plot and we are going to lose this, not with the amount spent already, notwithstanding. So I think that it is something that needs to be looked into very carefully. We have to get it right this time.
Richard,
It's not about excitement on the universal health coverage. It's about ensuring that some of those predicaments are smoothened out.
And what makes me worried, Richard, because again, nobody's talking about it. How much of the taxpayers' money is being used in this process? Right? Are we going to hear another scandal that, okay, you guys, this process you have been doing, then 10 billion has been lost? Right? We need accountability also, because this process, again, it's not cheap. Right? Kenyans are going to pay a lot of money for this process. At the same time, I still insist that this government itself, because each and every day, we will see Richard, a lady will walk to Kenyatta Hospital and probably miss or fail to get better insurance, right? And he will fail to get better quality health coverage because this government cannot stand with its people. Number two, because the government has been known continuously to blame my party leader, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I'm yet to see what the excuse this time, because I know I stand with my party leader. He said that today, if someone's wife fails to deliver, this government will wake up and say, Uhuru Kenyatta has failed to do his job.
In the decision, the High Court blocked the use of the National Integrated Identity Management System, and this is also falling under the registration of persons. SHIF states that any child born after the enactment of the law must be digitally registered. So there's still a predicament on registration, data collection of Kenyans, and as well, the Nubian Rights Forum were also filing a case in the High Court because the registration of persons has not been done yet. So how are we going to register for health services? Which means if you're not still recognized, as the Nubian community has been fighting for registration of persons here as Kenyans, that's also going to be another bottleneck, given that you're a section of Kenyans or a section who identify as Kenyans, but now you can't even register for health services because the state does not recognize you. That's quite a sad situation there. And hopefully then the High Court comes up with a decision that doesn't mirror what happened in the Finance Bill or the Finance Act of 2023.
And we really hope this system also talks about how it will be devolved in counties, because that is also something they need to talk about. Because I've had cases whereby a patient comes from all the way from Kiambu County to if Kenyatta University Referral Hospital is in Kiambu County, right? If this patient is referred to the Kenyatta Hospital, some of these patients are failed to be taken care of because they're coming from one county to another, and the NHIF itself or the insurance fund does not clearly stipulate where this person can get better quality services based on where he or she comes from. So I hope this system will really handle such nitty-gritties to make sure our people, me and you, Richard, get good quality medical services.
Right. I think it's that friction between devolution, which is health fully devolved? Which parts of the national government handle? Is it the SHIF? Should we have SHIF within these counties themselves and devolve it fully? Do you know you had something to say before we move on from that health story?
No, I just wanted to say it is good that we are highlighting the fact that these new acts are kind of meeting at some point and rubbing shoulders not very well with other laws that are already existing. Talk about data protection and all that. I think right now data privacy is a very big topic, and it is good that it is also being highlighted. I'd really love to see how the judge is going to decide on this one. And remember that courts really like going to look into the procedure. Even in the election petitions, they really like looking into how is it done versus how it should be done. And let's see what Judge Chacha Mwita will come up with.
Okay, in the meantime, jobs for NHIF staff are in limbo as new management is supposed to take over. Some of these have been given an ultimatum of 2 months to provide proper structures to spearhead their employment process. CS Nakumicha, they are saying that some of them might not get jobs, might not be guaranteed jobs, and therefore will be allowed early retirement. I wonder how you qualify for early retirement if you're in your 40s then and you have no work on the other side. Also, some of them will be placed in public services in some other institutions within the government so that they can be cushioned against job losses. My opinion is all of this should be absorbed to the new fund.
I will argue this way, Richard. If there are going to be losses of job, right, then both CS Susan Nakumincha and President Ruto should resign as well. Because if they are allowing people to lose their jobs, it means also they are failing in their job. We should go back and choose people who are going to protect and create jobs, not losing jobs. This is not a matter of issue that we should be discussing here, Richard, each and every morning. These are very sad stories.
I'm hoping there's going to be a petitioner who will add it into the High Court case that job losses also. Let's take a look at it as we have 3 acts. I mean, how many more jobs can be created, or are they not enough?
Actually, as for me, when it comes to the matter of jobs, they said they are going to do an assessment so that if you are going to be transferred from NHIF to SHIF, they are going to assess
if you're fit.
It is my prayer that in this assessment, they get to know those people who are not efficient. Those people, we want to do away with corruption. Just the other day, NHIF had a scandal where hospitals were colluding with NHIF to balloon their bills.
The bills, right.
You walk into a hospital, something that should cost, let's say, 500, NHIF is billed 5,000 and all that. If they can weed out those people in their assessment, it will be good. But if they are just assessing and then nothing big comes out of it, I think, come on, transfer all these guys to SHIF, let's move on.
I have a concern though. If you're given a 2-month ultimatum and we know how corrupt NHIF has been, in those 2 months, pesa itatembea chini ya meza hivi, such that when a list comes up at the end, it's, these are the people we've assessed, but really the assessment was through an M-Pesa transaction.
Because these people have mastered the art of taking an opportunity in a crisis. And they know that within these 2 months, a lot of money, So,
never let a good crisis go to waste.
These people in this government.
Okay, so mass sackings are looming. It's nothing to laugh about, really. But hopefully that boat of corruption is not transferred to the other side of SHIF, but we'll be waiting upon the deliberations, of course, of the High Court, given that now petitioners have filed a case there, including, KMPDU and other medical bodies who are saying that stakeholders were not consulted. Also, other human rights forums which are challenging the registration of persons through this new health insurance fund. Read more about it. Page 6 of the Standard is where job losses are at, and on the Daily Nation, page 4 is that where that court case is at. Let's have a look at the images, and I will begin with the Daily Nation, which has a picture of a candidate in last year's KCPE exam from Kitengela International School, accompanied by other pupils, and I can see there behind him the man who's never missing at some of the most sensitive cases recently, who is city lawyer Danson Omari, who's helping them, of course, file this at the High Court. They're saying irregularities, inconsistencies in the grading systems, and some very serious contentious issues, some given marks for exams they never even sat for. And, now the NEC has failed to deliver the last exam of KCPE. How do you mess up your landing? You know, this is the last thing. It reminded me, earlier on I'd introduced this show with a very comical story from Nigeria, where, you know, there was a plane taking off from Lagos to Abuja, and, you know, passengers knew they were going to Abuja, and then, you know, on landing, the crew announces, you know, we are landing in Abuja. Alafu kiangalia nje ya dirisha, it's like, if you're in a match to Thika, unaangalia nje ya dirisha, unasema, hey, Kitengela tena in Thika. So they were 200 miles off. And it sort of mirrored what I saw here with KCPE. It's like you've been delivering this, you're saying we deliver it well to the last bit, and then on the last day, you mess it up.
Yes, Richard, you see, the sad state about this government is there's a lot of incompetence in all this, most of these ministries. We've seen the NHIF, that's the Ministry of Health. Now we are seeing it in education. When Professor Magoa the late was alive, we had public faith on the education system. When Matiangi was there was a lot of public faith. But right now, Richard, if me and you, if this government is going to be there in the next 10 years, right, and God forbid, I say again, God forbid, if our kids are going to have to be in this education system, that will give me and you a lot of heartaches. Because I read a story today that this kid, one of these people who has never scored below 420, he gets 78 out of 500, Dennis. Right?
Wow.
Ever in history, there's no, you see, even data does not lie, right? If you get 400, 350, 400, 350, averagely you land somewhere. Right?
You can't go all the way.
But this is a child, right? A teenager, and I understand at that level it's very sensitive because the vision starts at that level, right? The level, and some of these kids, depression hit very hard,
right?
And having this kid getting 78 out of 500, that is really frustrating. Something must be said. Right. We need answers, Richard. Who's running this ministry? Because as it seems, the person on the seat is not the person running this ministry.
They know. NEC released a statement over the weekend before you respond. They're saying that this is a multi-choice examination. So there's chances that, you know, mimi nimeandika A. So tuko na 73 marks kwa science. The whole class of 200 students, for example, here at Kitengela International School, that, you know, NEC is saying it's just a few issues here and there, but, you know, it's a multi-choice exam. It's possible. What do you have to say there?
A few issues which will take how long to correct? Because when you look at what has happened with this year's KCPE, it has done a lot of damage to the integrity of national exams in this country, and the NEC will have to do a lot of facelifting again so that we get to take them seriously one more time. Because what happened with the results, the KCPE results, I want to believe that this was a human error when it comes to computation of the marks and not the marking itself. Because right now what is happening is that even someone who failed genuinely can come and complain, and we will have to listen.
Yes.
Because if the people who are top performers have somebody like one scoring 420 has scored below that 420, I mean, it is possible for that to happen. Yes, it is possible for that to happen. But now what we are having here is a situation where there is so many cases that are repeating themselves in different parts of the country, and we are having a NEC that is not doing enough to calm the tensions, instead just coming out and telling us that, okay, it was just a small mishap here, we will correct. Brings me to the point about what is so hard in, for instance, saying a mistake happened, let's just recall it. What is so hard in recalling this, and we get it right?
Nick, what do you see happens if we recall the exams? They're seeking, the Kitengela International School, through Dansan Omari, are seeking for the High Court to halt the Form 1 selection process until this is done. What is the best case scenario, worst case scenario from your angle?
Before I answer that, one of my good friends, we know him, he's called Nuru Okanga. He recently got 401 marks
401.
Yes.
Yes.
So he did a press conference and said, this government has failed in its job because allegedly he's supposed to get more than that marks. So even him, he has filed a court case in parliament.
Right.
You know, for Nuru, I'm not even sure if Nuru was serious or Nuru was
Or
joking,
just creating content.
because I remember on that day in our newsroom, we were trying so hard to key in his index number. Look, we could not find it in the system. So
Okay. One of the students here pictured, I think it's the young lady right next to Ryan Kibet at the front of the Daily Nation. She said, you know, she was asking the government if they've taxed their marks as well. You know, I was supposed to have 400, I was supposed to have 420, but mkachukua hiyo 20 kama VAT. What will happen, you know, if we recall if the High Court recalls this KCP exams? Do you think that's the best case scenario?
Of course, that is not desirable at this point, because the ministry, the intentions were good. I think the intentions of releasing the results early are always good, because number one, it helps us reduce the cases of irregularity. You know, exams can be stolen at several points in the classroom when they are sitting for it, before it, early exposure to the papers. And even during the marking, the teachers involved and the officials involved in the process can at times connive to do things that are not really very good to the integrity of the papers. But the ministry explained itself that we wanted to get these results. I remember we also had KEPSEA, but KEPSEA has been kept pending to deal with KCP first, for the sole reason that this would help us then make parents have enough time to prepare for admissions, which are early next year. But with what has happened, I think the parents might even have to wait longer. But I know in court, maybe this can be classified as urgent. We've seen cases where cases are classified as urgent. This is most likely going to be classified as urgent and then acted on very fast. But again, the best thing that can happen, the ministry cannot award marks that are not there. Maybe they will just say, let us go back and look at what we have in our store. Look if maybe the problem was in keying the figures, which again will bring us to recalling the results. That's how I see it.
Isn't it hilarious and ironical that you know, normally it's NEC who don't trust us. Even during the exam period, is, you know, don't engage in exam irregularities. They, you know, allegedly Telegram was shut down during this period of national examinations. You know, there's distrust to the general public when it comes to national examinations. However, now it's the other way around. Now we can't trust NEC. You know, I did my exams, now I can't trust you who is supposed to give me the results.
One of the things that this government needs to do, number one, both CS Ezekiel Machogu and President William Ruto should offer a public apology to parents and children. Because these parents, most of these parents pay a lot of money for their children to go to school. Right? It is offensive, it is disgusting, and it is very unfair. Number one. Number two, in mature democracies, Richard, if a CS fails in his job, they call for his resignation. I am calling for his resignation because his level of continuous incompetency is growing by day. And we need to see change in this ministry. Right. Number three, because KCSE has just recently ended, we hope for the best. Okay. And that is a very sensitive place to touch on.
KCSE is one big monster.
And then finally, Richard, we are still not talking about the issue about the new university funding model. Right. People are coming to university, right? What are the models that have been set up for this transition period, right? This ministry has a lot of gaps that it needs to correct. That day in, day out, we see frustration, and we are really, really frustrated, Richard. Let me just stop it at there.
Because, you know, he's calling for the resignation of the education CS. Personally, I normally don't like holding CSs. We should hold them accountable. I'm not saying we should not.
But you don't like to do it.
But in my own capacity, I really don't see those people as the accounting officers. Most of them rely on PSS. We know of CSS who are in office, but we really question their qualification to holding those dockets. So I
well,
see
then
them,
at the very least, we get a PS resignation, NEC boss resignation.
in fact, for me, I'd ask questions first to NEC. But then I saw a report over the weekend that we're having CSS who are not in control. CSS who are seeing gazette notices for the first time, like the rest of us Kenyans.
Okay, like Allah,
The president
SHIF
himself-
is out.
The president himself said it. He said it in State House that most of his CSAs don't know what's happening in their ministry.
Right.
So if he knows that, then he should fire all of them.
So most likely we're having a CS who was told we are releasing exams on this and this date.
Yeah.
You
show
have-
up.
We have your written speech. You come and read the speech for us, Bwana CS, because it is the tradition, it is how it is done. So if that is the situation we have,
Yes.
the least I expected from him is, as the CS, take the phone, call NEC what is happening, and then come to us with an explanation.
Yes.
The guy has muted.
Yeah.
The guy is muted. The guy is in mute.
And the
NEC
government has muted.
Yes. The NEC is giving us the wrong results. Makes you wonder if this is IEBC or, you know.
I see
So
what
we
you
have a
did
national
there,
talent
right?
center.
We need to bring a choir, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that's what is happening, and we're hoping to. We'll definitely be following up on this case to see what is happening. But as of the moment, there's a case by the Kitengela International School. It's their second year actually contesting results. They did so last year, and they're doing it again. So, you know, they are our official leaders of the education opposition. And
They're trying to pull a Baba,
yeah, on the
a Baba card.
yeah, so hopefully this leads to something, given it's Danstan Omari who is currently handling it. Let's go to parastatals, guys.
Okay.
While we are still at education, one of those parastatals which are up for sale is KLB, which means education is still right there. And I don't want to say if it's under attack, given, you know, it's being auctioned. If we could put a figure, we would. But I think from the new university funding model, already universities auctioning has happened, you know, in quotes, and now we're having it here. 11 parastatals, as Deno said there, it's just the beginning, and the National Treasury already set motion for this. They're calling out the public to give their views. To give their views by 50. I'm laughing because, you know, we've been asked of our views a lot.
For a long time.
A lot of times. I don't think they've been put into consideration. We'll see that in the National Dialogue Committee. But also here now by 15th December, you can say what you have to say. But these are some of them. Let me just mention quickly if there's something you have to say about any specific one. We'll hear it, yeah? So Mwea Rice Mills, Kenya Seed Company Limited, Rivertex East Africa, Kenya Pipeline Company, the National Oil Corporation, Kenya Literature Bureau, and Kenyatta International Convention Center, among others. I had a comment here earlier before you gentlemen can chime in here. It's on the Kenya Seed Company, which is among those which are up for sale there. The Kenya Seed Company, this is Anderson Maina saying it on Twitter. Kenya Seed Company and its subsidiaries will be bought by a subsidiary of Bayer or Syngenta or a holding company of Bill Gates. So if it goes to any of these two, which are the highest bidder at the moment, directly or indirectly, we should be ready for hell as a country on food security matters if this Kenya Seed Company is handed over to either Bill Gates or the other side of Bayer. The same way our data as Kenya is handled by Bill Gates and his companies, we are going to the pits soon on matters of health and food security. That's what he has to say on the Kenya Seed Company being amongst the list.
You know, when we talk about Bill Gates, it was very interesting when Bill Gates came to Kenya immediately after the election of the president. I'm told that guy doesn't travel to African countries that easily, and not just African countries. And him coming here was a big statement. Let's see what comes out of it.
Right. Privatization.
I'm more worried because I had Kenya Pipeline in the list. I'm more worried because will the cost of fuel really come down if we go
the National Oil Corporation is also there?
Yeah, I'm more worried, Richard, because I told you earlier that the public faith has already been lost. We simply don't trust this government because they are doing a lot of, I like to call them gimmicks, to manipulate a lot of things that are frustrating to the public. I want to hear what are the processes that they are using to make sure that there is these parastatals don't go to a single bidder, right? And you talked about the Kenya Literature Bureau, right? Very soon they are going to also to auction the Kenya Library Services, because apparently they still believe we Kenyans we don't need to go to school.
They don't read.
Yes, we don't read, and not even just a matter of reading. We don't need to go to school. So that come 2027, that's the best way to manipulate us through the voting system.
Kenya Airways, Mumias Sugar feel like they were up for, they qualified, but they were not in the list. Or is it among the ones we expect later?
When I look at this plan, I am one of those people who believe that the government has a duty to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, both state-run and private businesses to run. I'm looking here, the nation is saying that 5 of the government-owned corporations are stable and profitable.
Right.
We don't have to privatize those ones, while the rest are cash-strapped. So when we decide to go the private way, I feel like some of these corporations and parastatals are just a burden to our finances.
Okay.
And if we can privatize them, if that is the solution, that's what is going to turn around their profits, then I have no problem them being privatized. Again, it comes to the whole bidding process.
Right.
Is it going to be transparent? Who are going to be the bidders? Is it going to be done in such a manner that we are allowed to talk and to air our views and what we think? The problem is that even with the public participation, the politicians will always have their way. So again, Kenyans don't feel like they are really represented there. Somebody was telling me something about public participation, that actually they don't even refer to us, the public. It will be like a referendum. It will be, we cannot all participate. So when they say public participation, they are referring to professionals and something like that, which again the mama mboga and mtu wa boda boda pale chini never gets a chance to be there. Right. So the privatization plan, I don't know how what the parameters they looked into when deciding the first 11 should be these ones and then the rest will be this and this. But for me, first of all, is how we can turn around the profitability of this. Look at Kenya Airways, bailed out every year in, year out. You are making losses, yet you are the biggest, I think, carrier in East Africa. I mean, it's not fair even to the Kenyan public.
Right. Also, just to add up on you there before Nick joins in is, from my own standpoint, if we are going to lobby for privatization of these companies, public participation is going to be important if we still want the government to have an enabling environment, because we cannot be rallying or championing for an enabling environment for private individuals, and then it ends up we're just championing for some political political investors who are going to be private investors. However, sisi wengine, there's now that tier, as you've said there. Professionals are being invited, but when it comes to the bidding as well, it's people with political interest invited to bid on their own private means. Alafu sisi wengine, when we are lobbying for an enabling environment, we're just lobbying for an enabling environment for these politicians who have invested in some of these parastatals. Hopefully, that bidding is made on a public portal.
Yeah. I'm picking something from Dennis that we actually need to talk about, Richard. The transition period, assuming that we sell one of the parastatal, Kenya Pipeline company, right? What is the employment transition period? Are jobs still going to be secured? Because if someone is going to own his own company, right? I have a right to choose who I'm going to employ, right? Then the government also needs to assure the public that most Kenyans who are working for these parastatals are not going to lose their jobs. So that is also something that needs to be discussed at these initial stages.
Because also, Richard, there was an idea that came up, which was if we can have a situation where the ownership remains with the government and then the management lies in the hands of the private sector, so that it is like a contract. You contract somebody to manage this thing. Is it possible for that to work? Yes. So that it is still a public asset, but then
privately
managed, if that can cure this. But then again, the same way we are saying our politicians, even by the time they are listing the 11 companies, they have already known known who is going to take.
Was there vested
interest? Who has interest in this one?
But on a lighter note, that, this government needs to hire this panel because we're giving them
we're giving them recommendations. I think we should have been on the National Dialogue Committee.
They need to give us jobs.
Right. Okay, so I saw something positive, and I was trying to get it so that we have a positive story to highlight before we move on to the National Dialogue Committee, which is I think the last story I want us to take a look at. But I just want to say that the public still is invited for views. So give your views. Maybe the more we continue to give our views, it's a process, not an event. So hopefully in years to come, the more we do public participation, it gets to make sense at some point. But you're invited to do that, and then Cabinet is going to forward this list to Parliament for approval. Hopefully, Parliament also gets to look at what is necessary and what isn't. There's a turnaround at the coast, and it's coming from the amount of profit or the amount of cargo that has been there. And I was just trying to get that story. I will be getting it in the meantime. Let's get to the National Dialogue Committee. Recommendations, proposals have been placed in front of Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. They've agreed on very important things, according to them. And here, the standard is squeezing it at the right. So some of the proposals here, less travel by government officials. I'd say that is already in effect, given the pronouncements by President William Ruto, except for himself. So I'm hoping it's also here.
I wanted to add that.
Less travel by government officials. They should say less travel by President William Ruto. That's all the government officials we need to...
I was reading earlier on Twitter. Kenyans are very malicious. That President Ruto only comes back to Kenya for conjugal rights.
Oh my God.
Very malicious. And it was really annoying because, why people are saying so, Richard? Because taxpayers' money is being set for this level of travel, right? And no single accountability from one point to another. And it is a sad situation that he tries and hide from it. And I could read frustration from that Kenyan. I don't want to be taken on the record, Richard, because those are not my sentiments. I could read the frustration because Kenyans are really frustrated by the tough economy that we have, the cost of living, the issue of overtaxing, and so many things that are going on. And one of the things that the National Dialogue Committee, and I can see led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, that they don't want to discuss the issue about the cost of living. They don't want to discuss about the issue about cost of fuel. Right? They are putting a blind eye to it. And probably we can discuss this issue the whole day. But reality is, Richard, Kenya has become difficult to live in. Right. Yeah. We can see here some of let's stick then the proposals, right? Less travel by government officials. That's a good thing. Yes. An increase in top executive offices. You're reducing travel for officials, but you're adding the number of officials. An increase in the office of the Prime Minister.
Entrenchment into the...
The net impact is zero.
Right, the net impact is zero. Entrenchment of a Prime CS, an office of the opposition, and two deputies, and we already have minority leaders in both houses. So that's not a good proposal there. Reduction in fuel prices. That's most likely to happen or not likely to happen?
No, they never agreed on that.
They never agreed on it. Actually, they walked out. The majority side walked out.
In fact, they are telling us that one has been escalated to the principal. Yeah. So I'm wondering, we had a committee of 14 with the professionals coming to present to you. You were unable to decide, plus a technical team.
Now they have to forward it.
Both sides are technical teams. All these heads could not decide on this one. Then you want to tell us that Raila and Ruto alone will be able to decide on this one.
Let's track back to the increase in top executive offices. So to have the Prime CS, experts are warning that to have the office of the Prime CS entrenched in the Constitution, to have an official office of the opposition leader and two deputies, it will take not just a simple process of signatures, but a whole referendum. We have the money to fund this kind of activities and changes.
And you know something, Richard, funny?
Because if once you propose to Raila Odinga that is going to have an official office and two deputies, he's probably going to shake hands on it.
I'm forgetting the name of the constituency, Richard. But there's a constituency currently we have an MP that passed away almost 8 months ago, and we still don't have a sitting IEBC.
I think it is in Northeastern.
Yes, and these are the things that one wants to ask, because there's an issue about an audit of last year's presidential elections, that the IEBC, you see, if there's an issue about audit, it simply tells you the IEBC failed on its job, right? That the anxiety that Kenyans are still feeling until today as a result of that simple management committee. Right. So these are some of the issues I think the NADCO committee under Kalonzo Musyoka and Kimani Ichung'wah should have sorted it out. Right. Oluwabana on Twitter, I don't know if they know you'll want to answer this one. Okay. Oluwabana is watching us from Juja. It's called Olua Achola. Yeah. Oluwabana is his Twitter name. He's saying, whose questions are they answering? This National Dialogue Committee.
Looks like they're answering their own questions, because the recommendations, the two things they disagreed on, the housing levy and the VAT on fuel, are the things that Kenyans wanted to get answers to. Right. And then they agreed on every other thing that touches on elections, touches on positions, and all those things that, to be honest, when Kenyans went to the demonstrations, let me tell you something. If it was not about high cost of commodities in this country, I don't think Raila would have managed to get as much or as many people to the streets. But Kenyans at that time had got some soft spot for him, because they were feeling the pinch. They are feeling even more pinch right now. But what came out of that process to me is very funny. Number one, if you are going to recommend for us a referendum right now, we are from an election. We are recovering from the effects of that election. COVID was there. El Nino is now doing us. Again, another injustice. You get us into a referendum, which is basically campaign mode for some time, and then we head into another election in 2027. Come on. I don't think we can stomach this at this particular point. And then this issue of having official leader of opposition, and then a minority leader, and then we have a prime minister, we have a president. Come on, who will be giving us orders? Who will be performing which roles? Even right now, President Ruto is struggling to define roles for Mudavadi and Gachagua. And then we are having an opposition leader with 2 deputies. Right. What will they be doing? The next they will tell us that this opposition leader will need a kitchen cabinet like in, like in the UK to counter the cabinet of the day. And then we have another bloated executive, and what the best you can give us is tell us that we'll reduce travels. I mean, the travels, even if you reduce the amount we will save, will not be enough to pay 2 or 3 officials that you are proposing. So on this one, if this guy sat for 90 days, honestly, and begged
come up
us,
with this,
taxpayers' money.
KCP students are better with coming up with results after.
I thought I was really frustrated this morning until I had Dennis.
No. For me,
you need to have a fire extinguisher here.
For me, to be honest, I think that I think that the recommendations of the National Dialogue Committee, they cannot fly. Yes. They don't have wings. They're not going anywhere.
There's a picture here to the Daily Nation that showcases exactly what that situation looks like in the bipartisan talks. So it's a house of cards. Last week, funny enough, I termed the politics in the Republic as a house of cards, or is it succession? Kuna wale wameona succession. Here is an image by Dula. I think it's being shown on the screen there somewhere. We have a caricature of Kalonzo Musyoka. I think that's Kimani Ichung'wah. And then Raila Odinga. I see Rigathi Gachagua's head peeking right there. This other side, not so sure. Who are these 3 other figures on the far right?
Uhuru Kenyatta.
Oh, Uhuru Kenyatta with a microphone.
And we have Eugene Wamalwa
and
Karua there.
It's a house of cards. Yes. What do you make of this picture, gentlemen, as we wrap up this segment?
I'm looking at the cards here, and we have too many cards. First of all, the bipartisan talks, there is some sort of instability. The gentlemen, the guys who are at the table are scrambling to save it from falling. So it looks like things are not really okay on both sides of the divide.
Right.
They are not talking the same language. And I was seeing a story that even Uhuru Kenyatta even tried to scuttle the talks before the recommendations were given. Martha Karua is saying something else, and then Eugene Wamalwa even
has nothing to say. He's just
confused me more because he was in the team, and the way he's talking against their own recommendations,
it's like he didn't even attend the discussion.
Or maybe they locked him out when they were writing the recommendations.
Kalonzo Musyoka has something on his head. Are those antennas for on a wiper? Oh my goodness.
That's the side of his party.
All right, gentlemen, I think we can't go much further because of time, but that's going to be our last look at what has happened in the newspapers this morning. Grab yourself a copy of the dailies. It's very, very insightful of what is happening all across the country in politics, education, and even El Nino, which we didn't get to talk about. So I'll allow you guys to do your last remarks. And then in that final remark, please include something on El Nino. We have lost lives, 76, according to the government tally, but I know it's more for sure. They've released 20 billion to counties for mitigating this. They were warned earlier on. President William Ruto stood up saying, you know, God has put the rains away. And now they're here and he's saying, you know, God is with us now. We have rain. They mocked us that there's no rain, but now we have rain. What do you have to say about that? And then please give us a final remark because of time.
My final remark will just be on that El Nino. I don't have so much to say this morning. But when it comes to the financing of the mitigation activities, the government said there was some money when the forecast was given. And then right now they're saying there is no money. I think let's find the money that was there the first time. If we can get that, I think we will be able to deal with that. Otherwise, condolences to families. I know 76 people have been lost, and 35,000 households, I think, are homeless as we speak this morning. And I hope we get a solution to this as fast as possible.
All right. Thank you very much, Deno.
I want to agree this morning with Dennis that so many families have lost their lives during this El Nino period. And it's very sad that the government are trying to play hero at this last moment. And they're not talking about the lives that have been lost. And the president has set another 7 billion. I was reading here, 7 billion for counties. And still no accountability for the other 10 billion. So those are the questions that we are asking. Where is the taxpayers' money going, right? Where the issues of money moving from one hand to another, and we can simply not account for it. And then finally, because the people of Resambo have sent me here today, Richard, you'll allow me today to say thank you so much to my friends of Resambo. I want to say thank you to Ben Wafula Mwiti, Mary Nganga, and James Gishovi. And finally, to my organization, Mount Kenya Colleges University Student Association, under the leadership of our national chairman, Faris Jain. Thank you so much, because they have given me this platform to continuously present them over and over again each and every Tuesday. And saying thank you to our national treasurer, President Eston Maina. Thank you so much.
Your chairman, I need him.
Faris
I need him. I need Faris.
Is available.
Faris is everywhere except here.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere. You let me know.
Tuesday is here for you.
Yes, because he's also Juja MP Camp 2027.
Okay.
Let's go and tell Koimbora that you are coming for that seat.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Nick Mwadime Mwangi, and thank you, Dennis Omondi, for this exciting session here, and for all of you who've been tuning in to Biashara Tuesday. It's been exciting here on KUTV Rise Today. Remember, we have Monday, Art and Culture, and then I come back here with business on Biashara Tuesday. We wrap it up. Please don't strive, but thrive. This has been an exciting session on Biashara Tuesday. May your jokes be high, but your profits even higher. Laugh all the way to the bank, and I'll see you around.